this is Kathy from MummyTravels, and I'm on to the second in my set of 12 tips if you're travelling with kids. And this is one that I've had requested by a couple of people, including Monica from the Travel Hack, about travelling solo with kids. Now, I've done quite a lot of my travels with my daughter, just the two of us. My husband quite often can't get the time off away from his business, and to be honest, I like travelling more than he does. So if I had to wait every time for him to come along, we wouldn't really get to so many places. My first big thing to remember is actually you're not totally alone. It's easy to kind of think of yourself in this bubble, just you and your child, trying to do this whole travel thing on your own. Actually, no, people are nice. Honestly, they are. You hear so much about everyone hates babies on planes and all this. I'm sure that's true. I know that's true, but actually, there are a lot of people out there who will help you. I've had people offer to hold my daughter while I've been trying to collapse a buggy to get it through the x-ray machines at airports. I had a very business-like looking man in a suit, obviously going to Eurostar, while I was trying to juggle a suitcase and a buggy on an escalator, and he just sort of swooped in and helped me and took the suitcase and got me up. Really, it's kind of not as bad as you might think it will be. People are nice. My next tip might seem a little bit contradictory, but it is to not have to rely on other people. You'll almost certainly get help along the way, but just in case, you need to be able to manage all this yourself. And one of the biggest bits of that is you've got to be able to carry all your stuff. You've got to pack light. If it's you and a baby, either in a carrier or a buggy, or you're having to get both, and you've got your bags, you cannot overpack. I'm not particularly tall. I'm 5'4" on a really tall day. There is a limit to what I can carry, particularly as my daughter gets older and still wants to be picked up and carried when she's tired. So really keep it down to the minimum. Unless you're going to the middle of nowhere, which you're probably not going to do on your first solo trip, there are shops. My next tip would be mindset. I think you have to go into this thinking rather differently. If you're used to, on flights, say, trading off with your partner, or having just travelled on your own before and sitting back with a movie and reading your book and having a nice drink and so on. No, forget all this, forget. You will not get to watch a whole movie for years. My daughter's 4, still can't really do it. She can sit down and watch her own film now. But if I try and get into something else every 5 minutes, go, Mummy, look at this, look what's happening. Mummy, look at this. If you go into it thinking, I'm not going to have a second to myself on the plane, I'm just going to be full on attention on my child the whole way through, actually it probably won't be quite that much because they will sleep and so on. But that way you're more likely to feel like you're winning a bit if you do get half an hour to read your book. And that extends to the whole trip. You've got to think of it in an entirely different way, and that just makes life much easier. Probably not the answer that you wanted, but that's how it's been for me. I would always tell people to travel solo, not to be put off by anyone saying you can't travel solo with a child. You absolutely can, do it. But it can be tiring. It can be a bit relentless if they have a bad day, if they're tired, just being on all the time. So just, again, factor that in. At the end of the day, make sure you have some space for you. And I mean metaphorical and literal space. I'm a big fan now of Airbnb because in the evening, put my daughter to bed, I can just sit back and relax. I can have the TV on, I can do some work, I can read my book, I can make some proper food. I'm not sitting there scrunched up in a quiet corner of a hotel room, desperately trying not to wake her up. On the flip side to that, you might be, this is very much my personality, you might find yourself craving other adult company. And again, I think you probably get both of those things during any one trip. At times you just want to all sound to stop and just to sit nice and quietly and decompress. Other times you want to be able to have a conversation with someone who knows more than 4 words. So it could be things like scheduling Skype calls with your partner or your family or your friends. One thing I would say, particularly if kids are little, is just to be a little bit wary of Skype. My daughter would get really upset if she could see Daddy on the screen and then suddenly he would vanish, and it was actually worse almost introducing him and taking him away than us just going away for a few days and her not seeing him. Or you might want to look at tours that you can join maybe that are kid friendly, and there are lots of those, so that you can get chatting with other people. Or also it's worth looking at kids clubs. Obviously if your child is just totally against them and will be utterly miserable, then no. And I'm not suggesting that you want to go away with them and stick them in kids club all day, because that totally defeats the point of the whole thing. But even an hour here and there is really nice, so just give yourself a bit of time as well. Then my last tip is to make the most of the flexibility, because actually, for all that everyone tells you it's really hard travelling solo with kids, it's actually brilliant, because there's just them and there's you, and you are in charge, technically. Anyway, so you can set up your own schedule, and then if it turns out that they're hungry or tired, then you can adapt it, you know, or if it turns out they love something that you hadn't expected them to, you can stay there longer. And you can just make this, it's all the benefits, again, of solo travel. And for you, you know your own child best. So you can look at them and go, oh, I've got 5 more minutes here and they're going to totally melt down. And just go, okay, you know what, that's it. We're done. I've got used to going around museums at top speed sometimes now, because my daughter will be, oh, interesting, interesting, interesting. Right, mummy, that's it, let's go. At other times, you'll find they get totally absorbed and you suddenly have hours somewhere. The last thing I'd say is practice. Try not to do the huge trip first. If you can go away with someone else, whether it's family or friends or whatever, with a baby, say before you then do a solo trip, do that. Or if, you know, you've been away with your partner before, maybe test yourself out at home, have a day trip away, just see how that goes. You kind of can only practice to a certain extent. You can only do it when you do it. The other thing is that once you've done it, you will never be as worried about doing it again, because you will get through it and you will go, hey, I can do this, which is kind of my overriding idea with all of parenthood. Hey, I can do this. And then you will do it again. And then you will go farther and farther and longer, and you will have a fantastic time. Keep watching for the rest of my travel tips. Or I will be putting them in a playlist when they're all done as well, so check that out. You should be able to see this down there. If you want to make sure you don't miss any, do subscribe, and I'll be back with more travel tips soon.